Hi, everyone, and welcome to We Are a Crotchety Old Man,
And a woman.
the podcast for you, with you, and sometimes even about you. How you doing, Abigail?
I'm doing pretty good, Arden.
So, Abigail, I was a little hungry today. What is the national day today?
You mean National Food Day, right?
National Food Day, yes.
Okay. Apparently, it's Carmel Popcorn.
Mmm.
So when I say Carmel Popcorn, what do you think of, Arden?
I think of only Cracker Jack.
Cracker Jacks, huh?
Yeah,
They came in a box, right?
yes, a cardboard box.
Right. And they even had a prize, right?
They had a prize. Did you have a favorite prize?
I don't really remember. What kind of prizes were there?
They had like little games, but my favorite were the tattoos that you put the water on, and you're like, my mom would have to do it, and then you peel it, and most of the time I would ruin it.
I know. Okay, I remember those. That was pretty cool.
Outside of Cracker Jack, do you know any other brand of caramel popcorn? Because I don't.
All right, let me think about it. What's the popcorn place that's all at all the beaches on the boardwalk?
I have no idea,
I
actually. I'm
think it's
sorry.
Fisher's.
Fisher's popcorn?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that would be considered famous.
Okay. Well, you know it. I don't because I don't hang out at boardwalks.
Now, I can't really think of another name, but do you remember where every Christmas it was the rage to get a tin can of popcorn? Do you remember those days?
I love those days.
I mean, I just remember that was like the grand prize of them all at Christmas time. I mean, usually it was several types of popcorn, but when I think of the caramel popcorn, I think of those bins.
Those big giant bins.
I mean, again, that was like a big deal.
Yeah, a few years when I was a lot older, we had them at work, and I just remember chowing down on the cheddar popcorn. I love that. But this is caramel. One quick question about Cracker Jack. Do you know what their slogan was?
No.
If you're really good, they'll call you Cracker Jack. Um, when did that come out?
I don't know.
That they might as well say it's so great, it's the bee's knees. I mean, like, I want to call somebody a Cracker Jack and see if I get punched in the face.
That may happen. I mean, if you go back to some episode years, probably last year, you talked about Cracker Barrel.
Right.
So now you're talking about Cracker Jack. So I think we need to move on.
It could be a racist term. Now that I think about it.
He said it. I did not. He said
it. So there was a lot that happened today in history.
Right. The next segment is, of course, This Day in History. And since you're the big history buff, I'm going to let you take over.
Okay, so there is a lot. So I had to write this all out because hopefully it won't be too much. It starts off in 1199, going just a couple of years ago. So in 1199, Richard the First. Do you know what he's most known as? What his name was?
No.
Richard the Lionheart. But I just did some really brief history on him, and he actually like. If you ever seen like any of the Robin Hood movies, and where Prince John is the sniveling younger brother, and Richard is always the guy who's the big hero. Well, first off, he most likely didn't speak English at all.
Really?
Yeah, he spoke French. He was actually captured, which is true, and he and his brother Prince John ended up fighting for 2 years in a civil war in England.
You had me lost when you told me he was French.
Yes, he is French. But Prince John, really fast. So Prince John, actually, there's never been he became King John when Richard died. And King John, there's never been another King John since then. That I thought was pretty amazing. And he does get that whiny, like, kind of like everyone who plays him.
That was his character.
That was his character. And some of that is probably true. But he also was the first person to introduce the Magna Carta, which was kind of, it was more rights for the people, but it ended up being more rights for the nobles uh, from him. So it was the beginning of the monarchy giving uh, more rights to the people in the end. But besides him, so now I'm fast forwarding way up to 1896, where it was the first modern Olympics, and they held it. Guess where?
Athens.
You got it. Nice. Good pull. Yeah, so you had, I don't know if they had naked Greco-Roman wrestling back then, but, and the discus, but they definitely didn't have synchronized swimming.
I'm sure they.
In 1909, American explorer Robert Edwin Perry went to the North Pole. Now, unlike the South Pole, which is actually on the continent of Antarctica, the North Pole is just water and ice. So a lot of times, like, yeah, if there's nothing frozen at that moment in time, it's not like you can plant a flag anywhere.
Unless you're Santa Claus.
Of course. Well, yeah, I didn't want to say that because, Santa Claus is up there, and I didn't want him. I want to get a Christmas gift next year from him. So yeah. So his workshop is there. Then fast forwarding to the year 1917, the U.S. Enters and declares war on Germany. But I wanted to go over this because this is fascinating. The big event, you probably heard that we actually declared war when Germany sunk the Lusitania.
I recall that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Lusitania was actually sunk. It was the second American vessel that was sunk, and that was in 1915, years earlier. There was actually another ship called the William Fry. That was the first ship that was sunk. The Lusitania was sunk. After the Lusitania sunk, Woodrow Wilson, the president, demanded reparations and that Germany never attack American shipping or any ships again. And he ran as president in 1916. He demanded and said, I kept us out of World War, well, it wasn't called World War One back then, it was the Great War. But he said, I kept us out of war, and he actually won. So he won the election in 1916, and then Germany saw that they were in big trouble because they were starting to lose. So they had what was called unrestricted warfare again, where they were sinking anything. So they ended up sinking two more. First, an Italian liner that killed 27 Americans in 1916. And then in 1917, another American liner, the Usatoni, I may have mispronounced that, was also sunk. And that is when things started to change. So it wasn't the Lusitania. By the way, when you hear the Lusitania and they say 1,900 people died, only 127 were Americans. So I thought all 1,900 were Americans.
So how are all the textbooks wrong?
Well, they're not wrong. It's just easier just to say the Lusitania because it was the most famous liner. But there were so many. So people got angry, and it wasn't until late in 1916 that the first Americans actually finally got to Europe, and it was only 14,000. And they finally went to France in 1917. We were there for less than 8 months. We lost 50,000 soldiers in 8 months.
That's awful.
Yeah, that's how crazy that was. More people died in World War I on England and Germany than did in World War II. And France. I mean, just amazing statistics. Anyway, then fast forwarding, and I do apologize because I don't want to spend all day on history, even though I would love to. In 1973, I'm not cutting into your time with sports, but Ron Blomberg of the New York Yankees becomes the first designated hitter to bat in the American League. He got lucky because there was a game earlier. He was in the 130 game, and in the game earlier, the DH actually was lower in the batting order. So he actually is credited for being the first, so they didn't have any pitchers batting in the American League, and now both leagues use the DH.
Really? I thought it was only one. When did that change?
2 years ago it changed.
Oh, well, you can't expect me to know everything.
Well, sports I'll give you a little break on, but you know everything else. So, and then in 1980 there was some event that you probably are familiar with.
Yes, I am. It's a company that everybody knows very well now, and that's 3M. And in 1980, they introduced Post-it notes, which, as we know, became a very large phenomenon, and everyone uses Post-it notes at some point. Now, Arden, do you know what 3M started out as?
No, I don't.
A mining company.
Wow.
But they broadened everything you could imagine. They're in healthcare. They're in mining, obviously, and office products, and medical. I already mentioned it, but medical, over-the-counter stuff. A lot of drapes and dressings. It's a big company, and I don't think a lot of people know that.
Would you call it a conglomerate?
Yes.
Look at that. I used the college word right there. So that's what I have in history. There was a lot of other little things, but
I have one that it's actually going to be in the future. But it was announced today that on June 7th, Pat Sajak from the famous Wheel of Fortune will do his last show, and it will complete 40 years of him being the host. Doesn't that make you feel old, Arden?
It makes me feel old, and now I'm wondering, like, was he on that longer than Bob Barker on The Price is Right? I don't expect you to know that because I'm asking it as a general.
I'll have to look that up later, but I think Bob Barker probably has him beat, but I'm not sure.
Just make sure to spray and neuter your animals. That was Bob Barker's famous ending of his show. Is Vanna White still there? I haven't watched Wheel of Fortune in forever.
I'm pretty sure she is, but we can move on from this.
Sorry. I could easily talk about that.
Let's go over a few things that have taken or piqued your interest this week, Arden.
So I got to start off with the earthquake in New Jersey, because it just happened the other day, and it really just shows how, this is my own opinion, on how so many people are so self-absorbed. Now, I've been in 3 earthquakes that I know of in my life, and none of them were like this, where people in New York City were like almost upset if they didn't feel it. There's oh my God, I survived it. I couldn't believe it. Everything was shaking. There was no damage. Nothing happened. It was a 4.5. Like I make, as someone who lived up in North Jersey and lived in New York for a little while, New York State. Like when it snows like 6 inches, you're like, yeah, it's a little bit of snow. Like I now see that in Virginia, it's the same way. I'm like, seriously, it's 2 inches of snow and you're complaining? It's awful.
Well, what was funny about this is, all the politicians came out, unified, we're gonna get through this together.
Right.
And, it was basically nothing. You told me what your mom said, and it was funny because your mom is a funny woman.
My mom, so I called her. I'm like, Mom, are you okay? And I got no answer. So at first I'm a little nervous. My brother calls me because he called her. He's a little nervous. We got our answering machine. Yes, my mom still has an old-fashioned answering machine. This is awesome. But finally she calls me and said, oh, I'm fine. I was on the phone with the doctor, and I thought it was that damn furnace. I thought it was rumbling. I was like, oh, what is wrong with the damn furnace today? And I'm like, I used to like, my mom is like such a tough old broad. Oh, that damn earthquake, it might knock over my Legos and stuff. But I do have 2 funny earthquake stories, real fast. So the first one happened while I was in high school. And so I'm in high school. I actually don't remember the actual earthquake at all, but my buddy was crashed at my house. I was sleeping on the couch. He was sleeping on the floor. I wake up the next morning and he goes, dude, did you fall last night? And I'm like, what do you mean did I fall last night? He goes, like, I felt like the house was rumbling. And I'm like, what, are you calling me fat? Are you serious? Like, it was literally a small, tiny earthquake in New Jersey. But then years later, we go to North Carolina to the Outer Banks. How's this for the worst vacation? We had on a Tuesday, we had that earthquake. Now we were in North Carolina and it was in Virginia, so it was a minor rumbling. I was actually in the water when it happened, and I just thought we had a little undertow. That's it. I didn't know anything about it. 2 days later, we had a hurricane. So Tuesday, earthquake. Thursday, hurricane. Trip over. Worst ever.
That's awful.
It was, but it was still fun though because I got to hang out with my friends. So that was the earthquake. Um, any interest in like the solar eclipse at all?
No.
I posted a picture of the one from 2017 on Twitter that I do remember taking, but yeah, I'm kind of not interested in it. So that's yay. I mean, I would like to see it, but whatever. What else? Any interest in Powerball at all? What is it like 1.2 billion dollars? And I'm like,
Well, who wouldn't be interested in that, Arden? Come on.
well, the odds were like so ridiculous. Like it's over like 275 million to one. So basically the entire United States population like it has a chance at this.
But it only takes one person to get the numbers right.
It is true, but it said there was better odds of getting hit by lightning twice than winning this. So I've never been hit by lightning, so I think I'm not going to win.
Well, anyway, Arden, what's happening in 2 days?
We are taking a jaunt to the Virgin Islands, and I'm already getting nervous.
I know you're nervous, but tell the crowd why you're nervous.
I hate flying. I am terrified of flying. It always rains when I'm flying. There's always turbulence. By the way, I don't fly like at all. I went like 20 plus years without flying. And so I told Abigail, I said, look, I'm going to need a drink and what's it called? Damphermine. What the heck is that drug called that you're going to be giving me? Crack, cocaine, lithium,
I'm not going to convey
helium.
that on air.
I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I got to get my ass knocked out.
I think you just need to stick with 2 drinks. Stiff drinks, but drinks.
I'm literally gonna be crushing the sides of the thing I hold on to. I don't know. But we are going away, but we are so dedicated that I think we're coming back next Saturday and we're gonna do a show. We might be tired. I might be sunburned. I don't care. We're doing the show next Saturday.
Okay, Arden, you did not consult with me about this.
Might be 3 in the morning.
Yeah, it may be 3 in the morning. You know, I'm not going to promise our guests this. Worst case, we do it on Sunday, okay?
Oh, all right. What a bummer. Let's see, what else did I have that was actually kind of fun?
Well, I think it's time for you to go into sports.
Okay, now before Abigail does her entire sports recap, just wanted to, I am currently right on television. I have the UFL on. There was a good game today, and they had the Brahma Bulls were down, and they have a special onside kick. They don't do really onside kicks. You could do it, but they have in their league, if you want, you start out at your 28-yard line. I have no idea why they chose the 28, and they give you the option. You can try an onside kick the old-fashioned way, or you could have it 4th and 12 at your 28. So the San Antonio Brahma Bulls were actually down by a touchdown, and they went for it. They got it. They had 48 seconds left, marched down the field, scored the game-winning touchdown. I am loving this league for that, like these crazy things. I mean, last week you had the kicker who never kicked a field goal. I think I talked about that last week. And
you did.
I did. But I didn't talk about our DC defenders who lost, which was total bullpucky. But they had like the greatest play ever, where they literally said, okay, there was they lined up for the field goal, who did they play? Oh shoot! So the opposing team of the defenders, I'm not even going to name them, even though they won. It was the Brahma Bulls. They lined up for a field goal. They then went in motion where the punter became the quarterback, the kicker went to the wide receiver, and the center became eligible because he moved over to the tight end position. And look, it was the most amazing play ever. So the ball is hiked to the punter. Punter catches it. He had enough time where the center waddles down the field. He waddled 40 yards, caught the ball, and got in for the touchdown. And the Brahma, I was like, that's the craziest play ever. This league is awesome. If you haven't seen it, watch it. The Battlehawks are playing tonight at home, and they have like 40,000 people in their place. It's awesome. Other quick sports. The Oakland A's are no longer going to be the Oakland A's. They're just going to be the A's. They're moving to Sacramento for 3 years before moving to Las Vegas, so they will not have a city name. They're just going to be the A's.
Has that ever happened in the past? I can't really think of it.
It's almost like a reverse thing that happened to the Washington football team, where they didn't have a team name. They were just the Washington.
Right, but they still have the city in Washington.
Right, but they didn't have a team name. This is the opposite. They have a team name, but not a city. And also wanted to go over real fast that. Oh, sorry. We had in the UFL, one of the other things that really, really pisses me off is all of the sports betting. Oh my God, I hate it. I mean, like, no wonder we have all of these people having betting problems. Every 5 minutes is a commercial for betting.
Well, in several sports, it's advertised all over the place. But the thing with the UFL, formerly the XFL, is the announcers actually throughout the game talk about the odds and what you may or may win may or may not be winning. I mean, that's where it gets really obnoxious.
It's so bad. Like there's entire studio shows all on betting lines. And why? And I'm like, am I watching ESPN about betting lines? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous, as my mom would say. It was so bad. That's why I really loved the Ranger Devil game. I know I showed you the video. Did you see it?
You did, and it was really, really crazy.
Oh my God. So opening, it was fight night at the Garden. That's because they used to have boxing at the Garden all the time. So their announcer loves to say that. But it was a full-on line brawl, Rangers, Devils, 5 players on the Rangers, everyone but the goalies got into it. And the highlight was Rempe, the guy who barely plays. He's played in 3 games against the Devils, and he's been ejected in every game so far. He's just this young kid, and everyone loves him. I mean, his uniform is the #1 jersey being sold for the Rangers. I mean, it's incredible. People love this kid, but he keeps getting ejected. But it was a great game. Rangers won, of course, because the Devils stink. But then there was a lot of sports for you. Sorry, I've been talking so much. I'm all hyped up.
Well, I think you missed one, and it goes back to when I was a kid and into wrestling. The big event was WrestleMania, man.
Oh, wow.
That's where it was. And it was always usually pay-per-view. Are they still pay-per-view?
It's not only pay-per-view, but it's 2 days. It's tonight and tomorrow night is WrestleMania 40.
40?
40. And by the way, okay, I'm dating myself here. I was a freshman in high school when WrestleMania 1 with Hulk Hogan and Mr. T coming out. They had like Muhammad Ali was there. One of Daniel, remember Daniel from episode 1? One of his favorites, Liberace, was there. He was the special timekeeper. They had all these famous people, but the person who is the famous person who's actually wrestling again, The Rock, is actually going to be wrestling tonight.
That's incredible. And I hope everyone knows that The Rock is essentially part owner of the USFL.
He owns a sort of half of a half, but not a quarter. He owned the XFL with his ex-wife, and now they're sharing it with another group. It's a little confusing because you had the USFL and the XFL who merged. So it's a little confusing for me.
Well, The Rock is The Rock. Didn't he start off at University of Miami?
Yes, and he actually was the player who replaced him was Warren Sapp, or he replaced Warren Sapp.
Really?
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. I think he replaced Warren Sapp, and he never made it, and that's why he loves this league. So, what do you got for sports now that I've talked for way
I
too
don't
long?
have too much. I'm watching the NCAA, mainly the women's, but
Mm-hmm.
the men's game for the Final Four tonight.
Yep.
So there was a lot of talk about LSU's coach, Kim Mulkey.
And this is women's, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Arden, again, I think sometimes you're sexist when it comes to sports.
No, I just don't know anything. I'm not following. I just know there's a big guy who played for NC State, and that's all I know. I couldn't tell you he's good.
Last year, the championship was LSU versus Iowa.
Okay.
And of course, Caitlin Clark was the big phenomenon. And LSU ended up winning that game. There was a little bit of bad blood between the teams.
Yep, I remember that.
And this coach is a little controversial. And the Washington Post did a little bit of a hit piece on her. And she came out fighting, threatening to sue them and so forth. And it really made her look bad the way she was reacting. And overall, her story's kind of interesting. She's 5'4". Was a point guard for a very successful college team. She coached at Baylor for 21 years. And guess who one of her players were?
I have no idea.
Brittany Griner.
Oh, I remember her. Okay.
What happened with Brittany? Let's see if you know that.
What happened to Brittany? That sounds... I'm thinking Britney Spears, because she was alive.
Didn't she get arrested?
Yeah, she was the woman who got arrested in Russia.
Correct.
And she got released, but they didn't release the other person, and then another guy just got committed, and they're still in Russia.
Right. So
Brittany Griner. Okay.
Yes, Griner.
It's all coming back to me.
Okay. Good. So anyway, the hit piece wasn't that bad. I mean, they accused her of really just pushing her players to do their best, somewhat beyond their limits. A couple of gay players felt that they were discriminated against, but then you had people like Brittany come out and say she wasn't that way at all.
Right.
At the end of the day, she quit Baylor after winning a few national championships and came to LSU.
Only one.
And it became, a good team within just a couple of years. Now she's really well known for her flamboyant outfits.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, she dresses amazing. I mean, I don't know where she gets those outfits, but overall, the last thing that kind of really hurt her reputation was that they missed the national anthem the other night.
Yeah, I did see that. Was like a top story.
Yeah, I mean, she explained that, that it wasn't intentional, that 12 minutes after the final practice, or 12 minutes before tip-off, they always go back to the locker room. So, she said it was a mistake. She apologized, and so I think we can move on.
Now, before you move on, because of is this now like a great rivalry that's helping college women's basketball? Because now, I mean, it's being talked about now on regular news broadcasts. Even though it's negative, it's still a positive. What's the old adage? Negative news is still news.
I don't have the specific statistic, but I believe that the LSU Iowa game beat the what do you call it? The TV rankings? What do you call it?
Oh yeah, the Nielsen ratings.
The Nielsen ratings were through the roof because A, Caitlin Clark was on the game, but B, it was a rematch of last year's championship game, and overall they didn't get into any risks. They had good sportsmanship, and of course I was happy because Iowa won. Now I watched Iowa play last night against who did they play?
That was in Connecticut?
Yeah, UConn.
See, look at that. I'm paying attention.
Now, UConn was handicapped because they only had a few players to use because a lot of them were injured.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they also went into foul. They had a lot of fouls in the beginning of the game, and it was really going to hurt them. But overall, they dominated. They put some girl on Caitlin Clark that stuck to her like glue. But in the end, Iowa pulled it off. They felt the news, ESPN felt that the last foul that was committed was ridiculous and it shouldn't have been called. LSU essentially had an offensive foul and had to give the ball back to Iowa with just a few seconds left. But at the end of the day, the girl practically knocked the little girl from Iowa, onto the ground. So,
Right.
ESPN sometimes just wants to make a story, a news story,
Yeah.
when there's just nothing there.
Right. Well, it sells. Because why watch ESPN?
Right.
There's any other reasons.
So I'm excited. I'm sorry about that.
Sorry.
I'm excited because tomorrow night is the National Women's Championship. It's actually going to be a little earlier at 3 p.m. and it's going to be the undefeated South Carolina against Iowa, and I will be rooting for Iowa.
Oh, wow.
And not much to say on sports, Arden. That was it.
Well, doesn't the women's game usually go isn't the men's championship usually before the women's championship for some reason?
No, it's always women's Final Four on Fridays, men's Final Four on Saturdays, the women's finals on Sunday, and the men's is always on Monday night.
Oh,
Now, when I was in
that.
school, I always hated that because, even work, you have to stay up pretty late to watch the men's championship game.
Right.
And at least with the women, it's in the afternoon. So,
I actually, isn't there a sport where the women's are like their championship is after them? Oh, it's in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. It was in the Olympics. I think it's Olympic hockey. The women's go after the men, which I always wondered about that one because that's odd. So, anything else you got? We have our trip. Anything else?
I'm a little nervous. I'll tell all of you about packing here. Arden is a little disorganized, and I might have to go get another suitcase tomorrow. But I've been planning this for over a year, so hopefully I can pull it off.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that I don't see any very large animals in the water swimming around. Because when you live in New Jersey and you would go to the beach on Long Island with my mom, you can't see what's in the water. So things were always bumping into your leg. And so I'm a little nervous that I might actually be bumping into real things.
Well, we're hopeful we have clear water. Blue water, white sand, that's what I always want. So looking forward to it. I got to keep Arden calm. And so he can get to the flight. It is 4 hours, but I think he's going to do okay.
I hope so. So we're going to go with a little Steve. It's Steve in Seagulls. By the way, we did get an email from Jerome while I was talking. That's why I was being a little quiet. He actually wanted to know who was these guys playing a banjo, and it's Steve N. Seagulls, and they do a lot of covers. So I want to thank Abigail for another wonderful week. And hopefully we'll see everyone tomorrow. We are a crotchety old man.
And a woman.
And you can reach us on Twitter at crotchety old man. And you could also reach us at we are crotchety old men. I know with email at gmail.com. We are crotchety old men at gmail.com.